Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Amateur Otaku podcast, where we are, having sort of like a, should I call it last minute decision, or or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
It's when we
Surprise
are the
show.
surprise show, when we decided to, cover sort of like a talked about episode where that was a lot of people's mind, but we never caught it when it came out. But now that we have a time, all that jazz, we felt, why not doing it now? But anyway, we are talking about, as the title suggests, um, One Piece fan letter. But before we go on to that, how are you doing, Jamie?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, no complaints, I suppose.
Yeah.
Happy that I could check out the fan letter because I've heard great things, and so being able to talk with you about it, I'm sure I'll learn a lot more about it than what I could just piece together with my like 200 episodes, or is it 100? I think I'm like
Over a thousand.
150 episodes of knowledge. Well, I'm at like 150. I know there's over 1,000, but
Yeah, and here and for myself, I'm up to speed with both the anime and manga, so this is sort of like a interesting contrast between us two. And here it's insanity as usual. But let's go right into it. And One Piece fan letter is something that or should I say, the original one, which is loosely based on a One Piece novel, Straw Hat Stories, which is sort of. I haven't read that one, but it's supposedly sort of like a short story analogist thing
mm,
about everyone.
that's
And
cool.
and one thing that I kind of do like is that they gave us. I don't know about you, but the fact that they are giving someone that isn't a main character per se, you, some focus is actually kind of refreshing. You have to an extent, this random girl that will become a fan girl of Nami. Then you have the brother, one of the marine that is, dare I say, hates his job, and you follow their life in the world of One Piece through the means of having two different type of perspective of the world as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Subtage,
I did.
but as someone that isn't as um, involved in the One Piece universe, what were your expectation and feelings about this, so to speak?
That's an interesting question. I guess as far as just hearing about it, I kind of figured it would be um actually kind of a like a remake of some like maybe favorite scenes of One Piece, which I do think is a happening, and maybe I just mistook that for the fan letter. But I originally thought that the fan letter was supposed to be like, highlighting some fan favorite moments or something and like reanimating those. Um
Understandable.
and then we you shared like a brief clip of like one of the scenes in fan letter, and I was like, oh, this is very different than what I thought it was going to be. So I actually thought the main character was the Marine, the older brother Marine that doesn't
Yeah,
like his job. I thought that he was going to be the main character because he was kind of like the focal point of that scene that we watched. It's the scene where like they're in this war and like the big statue foot like falls down on him and his younger brother. So that's kind of what I was expecting. So then to have watched it a little bit earlier today and see that that's not at all what this was again, I got like triple bamboozled, I guess double bamboozled. I was still pleasantly surprised by this and had a lot of fun with it. I think what's the most fun for me, even as someone who's like, not caught up on One Piece, but is pretty like familiar with all the people in the cast, in this current cast, is the fact that they kind of do like a little something for like every character as far as like, oh, fans of this character, like you can kind of like see them in the background or like see them interacting with the environment or some kind of way. And I think that was really cool. Um, and I think let me see what his name was. The Benevolent King of the Waves. He's probably the most relatable character to me because it's a huge Chopper fan. And he's part of the Marines, so he has this like conflicting, oh, I shouldn't love him as much as I do. I need to arrest him. But he's so cute though. And I love that contrast. That's probably the most fun character for me. And
I'm
to be able to have like all these different viewpoints of like different fans too was really fun.
afraid.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna. I wasn't gonna say anything specific more than I agree.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no. It was a lot of fun to like kind of see, I guess, the common people's perspective of the Straw Hats with both like, the Marine perspective, oh, they're pirates, they're bad, they're criminals, all this kind of thing. And then we have like the little girl who's a fan of Nami. And it's like, she's the pirate that's doing it right. Like I really like her. Like she's kind of like my inspiration. So I think it was interesting and kind of helps expand the world of One Piece and makes you think like, oh, like, next time I watch One Piece and they're like in a town somewhere, like, how is this town affected by the One Piece gang? And I guess how does the One Piece gang kind of affect this town at the same time? So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun.
And speaking of, I also, how should I put it? At least for me, it's side stories like this is a good way to expand upon a world that it has already been massively expanded upon. Because even though you can, and it's a premise that you can have in the Costco from world to world, you only have 99.99% of the time the perspective of the Straw Hats. It's not about a random NPC, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, imagine if you watched My Hero Academia and then you suddenly was watching it about some random individual that follows the news and tries to survive in the common day world for XYZ. So it's so, and you see that's a way to show the people more how is the middleman having it, or should I say, common folk, so to
Yeah.
speak. And it's interesting how even the toughest person that has some form of uh, connection with a pirate, so to speak, as if they all dream about doing something else,
Mm-hmm.
which just shows how shitty of a world that world really is, if you really think about it.
Yeah, that's fair. I Yeah, I really like that they use kind of like the common people or the townspeople as like the vessel for this story, because I think that the other good thing about like using them as like the main characters, like the medium for this story, is that they're very easy to like kind of project onto. Like I can immediately relate to like the Nami fan as far as like, oh, like this is my favorite character, whatever. Even like I was saying earlier, like the Benevolent King of the Waves, like I could totally relate to him as far as like, oh my god, like I think Chopper's so cute. So if I was in this situation where I had to, like, I'm a part of the like police force or the Marines and I have to like capture the Chopper, like I would feel the same way where I'm like, I'm kind of conflicted. I like Chopper. I think Chopper is cute. So I think that's really cool and kind of gives people another way to connect with the franchise because like, We live in the real world where nobody has like stretchy arms, like super strength. At least not to like the degrees that One Piece has super strength, or people don't fight with like three swords or whatever it might be. But these common people like being able to like relate to these characters on a more like personable level about like, oh, I really agree with like Nami's philosophy on being a pirate or how she carries herself or something like that. I think is something that helps people like relate to the show more.
My question about Chopper also, it's easily this. Would he really be seen as a pirate if he was with if he did just going on his own and trying to find medicine for people if he were not with a Straw Hat crew and just by himself? Because
Uh
let's face it, he isn't doing the same stuff that everyone else is doing.
Yeah, I also kind of feel like none of them are pirates, at least in the traditional sense, other than they're all looking for a treasure of some sort. But even then, like they usually don't do like criminal acts or anything or like pillage like the places that they go to. So I personally don't consider any of them to really be pirates. I would consider them more like along the lines of like Indiana Jones to the extreme. Or there's like a researcher or someone that's like looking for some kind of treasure, that kind of thing, instead of a pirate, I guess, a traditional pirate.
Yeah, and I don't know if you notice it, but I loved. Speaking of specific moments and all that, yes, I just love the idea of who buys this crap, and then you suddenly see Robin grabbing that book in question.
Yeah. Yeah, I love how they're like scattered throughout the world in places that make sense for them too, which is really fun and interesting and kind of like, oh yeah, like Zoro would definitely be here, like Chopper would be in the shop looking at like Frankie's magazine or whatever. So um yeah, they did a really great job with still giving fans like a little taste of like their favorite characters without them completely overshadowing like the story that they're trying to tell, where they're just like a small piece of it and not like the focal point.
Yeah. Also, I have to say it was kind of funny that Frankie was the equivalent of Bigfoot in this short story,
Yeah, I thought that was
considering.
interesting. I don't know a lot about Frankie, so like the whole mystery around him and everything. I don't know if that's something that's like common throughout the world of One Piece or if they just did that for this
eh,
fan letter.
it's um, for the sake of not going into spoilers. Did you know about Brooke at this?
I haven't got to the part where he's officially joined, but I am familiar with Brooke.
Yeah, I do find it funny that we have the book cleric being, but I need to get get tickets to Soul King, and I'm just, how doesn't she know he's the Soul King? And when has he been able to recorded some records?
I was kind of thinking the same thing. I'm like, how did he become a famous musician? I'm like, I figured it was just he was a famous musician before he joined the Straw Hats, but now if you're asking that question, that makes it
he,
more
he
interesting.
was a musician before he joined the Straw Hats, but I can't recall that it was on that level.
Oh.
I wish Brennan were here to help me if because he's a living, walking, talking info bank about this whole thing. But I mean, also I have to ask. I mentioned that before. I know this isn't sort of like a story related, but many people are saying that this is some of the best animation of the entire year. And do you agree on that? A lot of people have said that Toei Animation have stepped up their game completely since Egghead.
You know, interesting question. I thought this would come up. I I agree that I think this is like really great animation and really great effects. But as far as how like the characters actually look, I feel like it looks a little flat, which would probably make it easier to animate to get all like the really fluid animation and effects. So I think one was probably the consequence of the other, but yeah. When I look at the like where I'm at with the OG One Piece, like I think the art looks, in my opinion, better, even if the animation isn't as smooth. So I guess it's up to what you're looking for with when you watch anime, but yeah, that's just my opinion.
That's fair. I was just curious because you are not as up to with the anime that has this style of animation to an extent. So I
Yeah.
was just curious.
Yeah. I think it's also like the earlier episodes of One Piece, like in the 100s, I guess, or 200s, um, it has a like nostalgic feel to it as well because things weren't like completely digital, like things were still on like cell paper and whatnot. So that might also like, I guess I might be biased in that regard where it's like maybe it's just like nostalgia and I like the nostalgic feel of it. But um yeah, it's definitely a different style for sure.
Also, there's here's another question that I also have an answer for myself. But is there going for would you like to see a side story from another point of view in this for One Piece, and from what perspective then?
I definitely would like to see another side story. I forget what was the side story we saw earlier this year? Where the guy was like he tricked the whole town to thinking that like the town was gonna explode or something.
Oh, monster, monster. What's it called? Let me go and check our.
Um,
I know
yeah.
it's about Soros' great.
Yeah.
Let me check. We have it as a stream. Let me see here.
But yeah, while you
Monsters, Monsters 103 Mercies Dragon Domination.
yeah, that one. I really had fun with that side story. Or I don't is that considered a side story or
Yeah, it's sort of like a side story slash prequel.
okay, yeah. I
Since
like
it's
that.
since it's supposedly canon now, I don't believe it was canon first.
Oh,
I
interesting.
don't know, but then I do believe it's canon now, sort of like how Horikoshi made the movies canon for the manga later down the line once they came out,
Hmm.
which will be interesting how they handle the recent movie, considering the manga has ended, unless they are doing some continuation of it. But I digress.
Yeah. But yeah, I enjoy the side stories a lot, and I think it continues to add context and like expand the world of One Piece, and you get to see, I guess, just like how people live on multiple different scales, and not just like we're the Straw Hats, we're like these infamous pirates, and we're always like dodging the military or like whatever it might be. But even on like a local level, we're just like I run a bar, and I just happen to run into this guy that wants to like trick the whole town, kind of thing. So I think telling stories like that is really cool. As far as like a side story that would involve one of the Straw Hats. I think that would be really interesting. We kind of had like, Zoro's had something related to, I guess, his story as far as like the monsters like short story goes. So I would love to see. I don't know. I want to default to Chopper, but I'm gonna pick somebody else as well. Honestly, Usopp. I'd be curious to see I guess Usopp when he was younger, which the live action version of One Piece I think actually expanded on as far as like seeing Usopp be kind of
They
like the
did.
boy who cried wolf a bit. So I'm
They did.
curious. I'm curious how they would approach it from like the animated perspective, if they would kind of like change some things, or even just going back over the moment when he met what's the girl's name that he likes in the town? I can't remember.
Let me double check here.
But yeah, meeting her and I guess like kind of how their relationship grew, I think would be something interesting. Or maybe even just like how he's adapting to living the pirate life. Like maybe they're on an adventure and you kind of get more of Usopp's perspective. I think would be cool. Just having these like outside contextual
Kaija.
moments. What was it? Kaya?
Kaija.
Okay. Yeah, Kai.
Kaja, as in the first letter in Yoshi, not J as in J, the name.
Got it. Kaja. But yeah, I think it would be cool to see like Usopp's perspective on something. Especially because I feel like he's him and Chopper, from what I've seen, I know that there are other Straw Hats as well, but they're very different from everybody else, where I honestly don't feel like either of them would have fell into the lifestyle of being like a pirate had it not been for running into the Straw Hats. So maybe it could be something like a what if story, like what would Usopp be up to if he hadn't joined the Straw Hats? It would probably be more lying, which wouldn't would be too great, but maybe it could be something different.
That's a nice idea. For me, well, I have two answers for that one. One of them is I would like to see it from, how should I put it? I would like to see one of the villains now. I'm speaking sort of that is going on because, and when I say villains, I mean the other bad pirates, so to speak, or a prequel for the sort of like one of the Yonkos when they were young. And speaking of that, there is an event that I do believe they have talked about where you are in the anime, but the reason as to how Roger became the king of the pirates is because he helped. They mentioned this in the anime and the manga, but there was an event between Goldie Roger and the Rocks pirates, and Goldie Roger helped Garp and the Marines to take down the Rocks pirates, and due to that, he managed to become the king of the pirates. And I would like to see that clash happening animated, because Rocks in the manga, without going into full detail, had several Yonkos, as in emperors. They had several Yonkos in their crew, and some of them much stronger than others. So, and that which could just be insane to watch.
Yeah, that would be interesting too.
I do know that I was about to say Oda once he is done with the main story of One Piece, that he wants to write more about Garp and Dragon. So I guess he is going to work on One Piece to the day he dies. Then I guess.
Well, if you do something you love, you never work a day in your life.
And yeah, and also I do wonder if it's gonna be impossible for him to top this. Also,
Never say never. You never know. You never know. It might be. I feel like for me, like the continuation of something, typically I enjoy more than the original, and I think part of it is because I've got to know the characters, so I'm like more emotionally connected to them. So being able to see like the continuation of the story is exciting because it's like, oh, it's like listening to a friend like tell their story or whatever it might be. Like you've come back to hear like more of how like life is going or whatever it might be. So I think if they like kind of went back to contextualize things, maybe similar to like a Game of Thrones to House of Dragon, except you don't have to include the ending. But Game of Thrones to House of Dragon, like people are really excited about House of Dragon because it adds further
yeah,
context to like, something that they really loved, which was Game of Thrones. At least until the ending. But I'm like, you never know. It could I feel like surpassing it would be a heavy task, but getting close, I'm like, maybe if he stays on his game, I could see it.
yeah, I agree. I agree. And well, is there anything else that you want to talk about this before we wrap this thing up? Because I feel like we don't have that much more to talk about when it comes to this one.
I was kind of curious for you, like having this be one of the I guess episodes that comes out while One Piece is on break. Um would you like to see like more of this during the break or um excuse me, like what I don't know. I guess just like how do you feel about more fan letters in the future, maybe?
I would love to do this, to see more this, to some extent. And I'm not against this whole idea of. I'm not against them doing more, uh, doing the thing they are doing right now. But how should I put it? But they are doing an updated version of the Fishman Island arc, which is, well, one of the arcs, obviously. And so I had much rather seen that than I had much rather seen that than uh, the reanimated stuff of it, because while I have seen an episode of that and it looks great, yada yada yada, we are getting the reboot, remake, or whatever we're gonna call it. Why bother with this? I feel.
That's fair. That's a fair question to ask. I think it could be kind of I don't know how familiar you are with Star Wars Visions.
I am.
But basically for the audience, it's kind of like Disney or like Lucasfilms that controls the Star Wars IP gave multiple like anime studios or just animation studios in general the opportunity to tell a Star Wars story. And they all did choose different Star Wars stories, but some hit on like similar themes because it's Star Wars. And I think like maybe this could be that where it's like, we've hit a really big anniversary with One Piece. One Piece is on a break right now. And maybe another studio has always wanted the opportunity to kind of like take on One Piece or maybe animate like their favorite part of it or whatever it might be. Granted, like the same studio kind of doing it, that is, I don't know, maybe it's like revisiting your old work and you're like, oh, like I could do this so much better kind of thing. But they don't wanna do, like, the whole series, I guess, kind of similar to what Wood is now doing. So, It is it's just an interesting question to ask, but I feel like, at least I hope, it's more of a situation of the artist doing something just for the art of it, not necessarily for the profits or because it makes sense. Yeah, I think that is all I have.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know that episodes of that arc is about 50 episodes, and they supposedly say that they are going to do about cutting it down to 20, that arc.
Mm,
So
interesting. So I'll hit the highlights.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
We'll see where so they announced the fan letter as a part of like this celebration of One Piece. Do you remember like what the other announcements were that of like the different projects that will be coming out during this break?
No, I have not.
Okay, let me see if I can find it, maybe. Because I think there were some other things that they were going to do during the break. Let's see, it'd be a special episode. Okay, here's more, and then it takes me to the One Piece wiki. Oh, this is for the Straw Hat stories that you were talking about earlier. Do a quick look on Gamerate. So it says One Piece anime on break, airing remastered Fishman arc. We know that. The fan letter, that's come out. And then episode showcases parallel between Luffy and Brother. Okay. That might be it, actually. I don't know. Nothing's immediately coming up, but if I see it, I'll let you know.
Okay. Yeah, but with that said, gaming, where can people find you?
You guys can find me at Swiper_Prime on Twitch and YouTube. We've been playing through Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. That's been super fun. I'm like kind of reaching the end of the game, which is always like a bittersweet moment. But it's been a lot of fun, and I can't wait to get back to it, hopefully on the weekend. Outside of that, no, I think that's it. It's mainly been Echoes of Wisdom.
Yeah, and well, you can find my writing at the Wolf Rights. I'm currently working on a review on Mario Party Jamboree as good as I can. And tomorrow, or should I say tonight, for my time, Jamboree has no, it's not Jamboree. Brothership has released, so I'm going to try and work through that. And
yeah, I can't believe it's already coming out. That's crazy to me.
And so we shall see if that is a thing. And you can find me at Blue Sky. Yes, I'm going to still be at X for, well, there are people that I know that keeps being there for the sake of DMs and all that stuff, but majority of my time social media wise will be on Blue Sky right now. So, and yes, I have Threads, but I don't really like that one. Not, and I will say this: maybe it's because, and I say that as someone that knows other people that has the same issue, but Instagram and Threads has more fucking problem with the sex bots than what Twitter has, and ugh.
I haven't seen that, but I also don't use Instagram, so interesting. Interesting.
So, but that being said, did you plug any social media?
Oh yeah, I talked about streaming and gaming and whatnot.
Yeah. So with that said, everyone, have it awesome.
See you guys.
Please like and subscribe and hit the bell. At one.